Welcome. I am your host, Cindy Watson, and today I am so excited to be introducing you to Kathleen Caldwell. We're going to be talking about the importance of resilience and trusting your intuition in negotiation. So, welcome, Kathleen. It is so great to have you here.
Cindy, I'm so thrilled. I admire you as a friend, as a colleague, as a thought leader. I'm so delighted. And we've been waiting way too long to have this conversation, haven't we?
We have it for our
The
listeners.
anticipation.
It is the anticipation. I've been wanting for so long to get Kathleen in front of you because, get your pad and paper ready. I've had the pleasure to be able to meet Kathleen through sort of professional circles, and we now are in a board of directors together. And she just always shows up with such grace and such an incredible wealth of knowledge. And she does amazing work empowering women to show up as the best version of themselves and get more of what they want. So for those of you who don't know Kathleen, she's the CEO of Caldwell Consulting Group. She's also the founder of Women's Success Accelerator, which I love the name of that program. And also she's a founder of C-Suite Networks, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, all doing fabulous work. And she is a credentialed success coach. She's a professional speaker, an author. She has mentored and advised thousands of entrepreneurs, executives, leaders, and business teams around the world to greater success and profitability. And she has received numerous awards, which are very well deserved. And I am thrilled to be able to call her a friend as well as colleague. So why don't you start, Kathleen? Tell us how you came to do this work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Cindy, from a young age, had such a passion for sales, passion for taking risks, doing things that were way out of my comfort zone. I think maybe it's a firstborn trait, or coming from parents who were very entrepreneurial oriented. They were entrepreneurs from an early age. And, as a daughter of a long legacy of people that were trying things that were very risk oriented, not necessarily risk averse.
Yeah.
And then also with my father in sales, in leading teams and starting his own business, he was such a negotiator, my father. So I learned at a very age. And of course, children are sometimes, as I've heard you say in your wonderful podcast, children are sometimes the best negotiators to get what they want. So I learned all these things at a very young age. And then right out of college, went into high tech. My father lovingly said, "You selling computers, Kathleen, is like me selling rocket ships." So that was my call to arms, Cindy, to say, all right, I'm going to be the best darn computer salesperson there is on the planet. And I did it and rose to the top of the organization I was with back in the day of the Apple IIe and the IBM PC, and got all kinds of sales awards, competing with wonderful guys who were exporting computers to South America. And here I was in this little community, little town, and, just learned early on that negotiation, going for it, not having to have it all figured out, and trusting myself was really the key to all of this, and just going for it. What was the worst that could happen? And I learned that from my parents, and I so appreciate that from them, is, taking calculated risks, but doing it with the idea of, I could do it. No matter what happens, I'll be able to pick up the pieces, and also to be able to, do it from a place of how can we, I didn't have the language for it early on, but I do now, is how can we create win-win-win? I win, you win, and we all win as a result of this business arrangement, this personal, professional arrangement, all that. Yeah. Early on. So
Everything about that. No surprise there. And again, for our listeners, as I told you, you are in for a treat today. There's so much there to unpack. I mean, I love that you talked about comfort zone, because I think for women in particular, they tend to be more resistant to getting outside that comfort zone. There's a lot of conditioning that makes us keep ourselves small. And I love your approach to failure. I think it's so important that we stay in that growth mindset where we're willing to take those risks, make those big asks, be able to fall down and get up and try again. And I gotta say, I mean, I've always known you're ahead of the curve, but wow, like I hadn't realized that part of your history, that you were doing, Apple and high tech way ahead of the curve for women. I mean, I suspect you were one of very few women at that time. So kudos to you. What was your experience like around that?
It was amazing. I learned so much. I was one of two women regional sales reps for Tandy Radio Shack and then Microage Computers. And it was a very male dominated industry, particularly with the state of Florida at the time, was very Latin, very export oriented, very wonderfully macho. And here, one of the early earliest memories that I had is that, at a quarterly sales meeting, they had the coveted, he'd probably call it salesman of the quarter.
Yeah.
And the big award was this big brown briefcase
Oh,
that weighed about 50 pounds, and it was all leather. And, all of a sudden I remember the regional manager said, and the winner is, called my name out, and the
oh.
looks of the guys in the room were like, what? Who is this person? And I was from this little tiny county in South Florida. No one had never heard of me. And I ran up. You'd thought I'd won a new car.
I love it.
I
And
ran it and grabbed it, and it was just amazing. So yeah.
And I love that it's salesmen. Like, we take for granted some of those gains that we've made. I remember when that shift came to, going from fireman to firefighter and salesperson from salesman, because that's kind of subliminal conditioning that all of these are rightfully male jobs is, such a powerful indicator. Now, you are known as a master connector. I have certainly seen that. And networking is so important, but so often ignored, I think. So I'd love if you could share your thoughts on the importance of networking and maybe share some tips on how to do it effectively, since you are so darn good at it.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I learned early on, and I had to, as you and I have discussed so many times, we've had to overcome conditioning, societal conditioning, which is be safe, play it safe. If you don't know who the person is, you want to kind of have your guard up and that type of thing. Well, I think it's important to inch over that, to get over that, and to be, if we're introverted, to be more extroverted, and to find again what the win-win is here, and to find out how could we together, not to really have something over on the other person or try to get something from the relationship, but really how can I build a relationship with this other person? And I firmly believe in a give first kind of relationship where I want to give first. But what I'm also focusing in now at this time in my life, the season of my life, is also focusing in on the balance of giving and receiving. I know that I've not been a good receiver. I've been give, and the cost to it has been very high. And so I'm really shifting my focus to being a better receiver of things, allowing people to contribute to me, and allowing, like, for all of us women, give us a job, or we take on a job and you go like, it's done, it's like done and it's perfect and it's great and all this, but there's such a cost to that. So networking, I also think, is giving the other person the opportunity to contribute to us.
Yes.
And knowing where we want to have that contribution, being really prepared for what do we want to receive and how do we want to receive it, and making those requests.
Yeah, so important. And thank you for speaking up to the elephant in the room, because, as you were saying that, it's one of the biggest issues I have with my clients. And I know for you as well, you do such great work getting, as women, we are reluctant to receive, right? We are so, even compliments, when somebody says you look great, it's like, oh, this whole thing, like, we are very reluctant to receive. So that is such an important message to recognize our value and that we deserve to receive as well, looking for that reciprocity. But I can tell our listeners too, Kathleen definitely walks the talk, because I have seen her give and give over and over again. And she, in every networking opportunity that I've seen, Kathleen is masterful at elevating the people around her as well, really giving them their props and kudos. And you model that so beautifully. And one of the things that you do that's a little different, I know that in addition to being a certified executive leadership coach, that you are a certified hypnotherapist, and you do a lot of work on intuition. And I'd love if you would share your insights on the importance of maybe, trusting your inner knowing and how you can do that. I think it's so important.
What an interesting topic. This is so great. Yes. And I love the idea of our inner knowing, our inner wisdom. And, I think the work of the body tells the score about really what is our body telling us? What is our intuition, this wisdom within us? We all have this innate wisdom that over time, I will say for myself, I discounted at times my knowing, this gut feeling that I would have. I would feel it in the gut, but I would more so feel it in my heart and my throat. Yeah. So I really encourage men and women, check in with yourself many times a day when something occurs and you have a thought or a sensation or an experience of, this is really right. This is a yes. feel that in your body. Stop, pause, take a deep breath, and just be with it for the moment of knowing what is the yes for you. What does a yes feel like? Because the yes has got sensations, it has an energy, it has a glowingness in your body, and notice where in your body you feel it. And then what I encourage people to do is remember back into a time when you have experienced those same yeses, when you've made good decisions and you said, oh, yes, this is the right thing to do. We've all had
So
them.
good. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that. And tied to that, I assume as well, knowing that no, as you were speaking, Kathleen, I'm thinking of the times in my life when I had that gut feeling, a push back, and I didn't trust my intuition. And invariably, it blew up in my face. And I'm left at the end going, I knew this at some level, right? I just knew this.
And what a great thing to bring up, Cindy, because, to look at the opposite side of it is noticing when we know our no, we KNOW our NO. And yet, what's the knowingness within us about the no? No, this is not right. No, I shouldn't do this. No, this is not the right path for me.
Yeah.
And to go back again in time when you knew for certain that this was a no and you followed that guidance, counsel, and then the times that you didn't, I don't want to beat myself up or encourage, let's not focus on the regret part of it, but more of the wisdom and the learning opportunity. So, and I love this is I frequently play this little game of testing my yes. Okay, yes. Yeah, feeling it, practicing it, then what's the no?
Yeah.
And being able to titrate, as we call this in hypnotherapy, titrate between the two, moving between the two, because these are muscles we must exercise and we must strengthen to know what the yes is, know what the no is, and be confident no matter what, we'll be able to pick up the pieces, do what's right. I've got this as part of my mantra is no matter what, I've got this.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone in the world. I have support with fabulous women like you, our other sisters and brothers. We've got support. We're not alone.
Some powerful reminders in there for our listeners again, like that. I love, and thank you again, Kathleen, for raising that. Don't beat yourself up. This isn't an exercise about self-flagellation. We do that enough, right? Give yourself grace and permission and use it as a learning opportunity. I love that you raise this idea about practice. These are learned skills, right? So just practice, let yourself get intentional about tuning in. And I'd love if I could ask you, Kathleen, as you were talking about that, finding that no and knowing it, how do you know the difference between when it's actually your intuition telling you no versus that little inner critic, that fear to stay in your comfort zone? Any tips on that?
Yeah, what a great question. What I practice is distinguishing for myself, the body sensations of the yes, the body sensations of the no. Where do I feel a no in my body or a feeling of the stop and the pause?
Yes.
And so many people say, well, I hear the little voice in my head and I just say, go away, go away. And I say, I suggest listen, stop, pause, and listen. Get quiet for a moment and listen to what the voice says as a counsel. You almost have, we all have this board of directors, this board of counsels in our head, that's our advisory council. And to stop, pause, and listen. And I think that, the little voice, identifying the voice. And oftentimes the voice is my mother's voice. And I love my mother. And at the same time, my mother is at times very cautionary. My mother has got the worry gene in her DNA. So I have it too, So she goes to a worry. And I love my mother. Mother, I love you. And I've learned so much from her because the worry part of us, we don't have to give into it. We can exercise and strengthen our warrior part. But our worry part gives us the feedback of the things we need to be on the lookout for. The worry part of us, the counsel part of us, is the part that says, no, it could be cautioning us to, hey, you haven't figured out the details yet. You're just springing and doing something. Slow down. So what I love to do is have an inner counselor session, take out a blank sheet of paper and start writing down, what does my inner counselor, what does my board of directors in my head say I should be doing? And just write down these things. And there's so much wisdom from this inner counselor session, this, this board of directors in your head. And, take the counsel and really think through, is it reasonable non-negotiable? Are these things that I really should be focused on?
Yeah.
And, then coming back to what's the next small step? We don't have to complete the whole project in 24 hours or do the thing. Just what's the next small step? And then that calms down our nervous system. It calms down the worry part of us, the no part of us. It calms it down so we can actually be more clear about what is the yes and what is the no.
That was
Long answer to your question, Cindy.
That was a gorgeous little masterclass on trusting your intuition, actually. You had so many key points there. I hope you're all taking notes out there. If not, come back and re-listen to the episode because that was pure gold, that little masterclass. I love that focus on tuning into our body and learning because I think as women, especially when we're worried that we're coming from it, when that fear creeps in, we lose the capacity because we get in such an anxious state that we don't take that stop, pause, get in touch with your body. And I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier when you mentioned throat, because that's often forgotten. Like you talked about tuning into that heart to your head. And I think the throat represents our voice so often. And for women in particular, tuning into your throat. Can you just give us just a little bit more on that? I thought that was really interesting insight.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Well, I believe in our bodies, we have an energy system, and some call it the chakra system, the system within our bodies. And all of the chakras are very, very important. But the throat chakra is very important for us, especially as women, because over time in your book, The Art of Feminine Negotiation from the Boardroom to the Bedroom, I love your book. Yeah, is all about, how can we reclaim our voices? And so the more that we use our voices to say our yes, to speak our truth in a way that other people can hear us. And I've been practicing this in the last couple of weeks. Interestingly enough, I've been speaking up more. And when I know that something in some area of my life that I have a point of view on, and we all have points of view, I've been exercising my voice to speak up, say my truth, without being offensive, without putting another person down, but more to speak like, this is my point of view and I have this. And what's your point of view? And let's negotiate and figure out where we can come together in agreement. So we've got to exercise our voice. And, the world is not generally set up for that, Cindy, as you know. And so
although I do think there's a shift, like it's in it. And I love that you say that. I think COVID has caused an openness. There's been a shift there, a space for that. So thank you for sharing that. And our listeners, did you notice what I said about Kathleen always uplifting people? She got a plug in for my book on her thing. She's just that constant sort of elevation, which I think is such a beautiful way to network, build relationships, and then be looking for that reciprocity. And Kathleen, I know you're also known for your unique talent to really manage sort of big egos and strong personalities, especially having worked and excelled in a male-dominated industry. So tell us a little bit about your secret sauce on managing ego in negotiations.
Excellent. Well, I think that I like to put my focus on what's the end game here. What is it ultimately that I would like to accomplish? What's the win for me? And, win, I love, stands for so many things, but it certainly stands for what's important now. And so looking for what the win is, and, allowing, for me, I like to allow people a lot of space, because oftentimes, when it comes to big egos, people just want to be heard. They want to be heard and recognized. And of course, with COVID, with so many of us have been in our homes working from home that we've not been out and experienced, the being heard and being seen like we were. So I think giving people the space and the capacity to be seen and heard and appreciated, genuinely appreciated. So putting on the lens of, what's really terrific about this person? What can I find in this person that is really excellent? And what are they going for here? What's their win? And, do I need to win, the argument, or do I need to push my point of view on this person? No. How can we create a relationship? And I've created a body of work called co-acceleration. So by you coming together and me coming together, we collaborate and we co-accelerate what's important to us.
Oh, I love that term. Get that patented.
I've got a trademark in on it. Yeah.
So good.
Looking for that lens, I think looking for the lens of co-acceleration and what's the win for both of us.
And it's beautiful as you described that, because I think when you do that, it invites the other person to step up to be the best version of themselves. So even when they are sort of bullying or, bringing that big ego to the table, when you give them that space, as you say, and you're looking for that co-acceleration, which I love, it invites them naturally then to show up in a better space. And I'd love to talk about resilience for a moment, because I think as some of the things that you were talking about, sort of women in particular stepping back, but for anybody who's sort of shy about stepping up, what role do you think resilience plays in a negotiation? And what are some tips you have for maybe how to build that?
What a great topic. I just wrote about this in my success column. I'll put a plug in for Her magazine. I just wrote about raising your resilience reserves.
Mm,
So I love alliteration. Yes, exactly. Well, like a diamond, we are as women so much like diamonds. Diamonds are resilient and they form over billions of years under tremendous pressure. And I learned so much about diamonds that in many industrial applications, that the only thing that will work because it has the sharpness, the precision, the resiliency is a diamond. And we as women, we are diamonds because we share those same kind of qualities. And so with resilience, we women, we're not necessarily born with it. We've got to build it and mine it like we would be mining diamonds.
yeah.
And so, focusing in on, again, what is your yes? What is your no? And practicing tuning into your body and practicing that intuition. It's something that's got to be practiced.
Yeah.
And it can be, and it's actually a fun exercise to do that. And practicing also our self-appreciation for who we are, what we bring to the table in negotiations in everyday life. What's that unique thing that we bring to the table that helps us with our resilience? And of course, things like continuing to grow, learn, be in a supportive community of other powerful women and other powerful men who see our brilliance like diamonds. And of course, our tremendous commitment to our self-care and our health. That is absolutely critical. We can't be shining brightly like a diamond with our resilience if our health is compromised.
Yes.
So making that commitment. Yep. So resilience, again, just like intuition, I think it has to be, the opportunity is for it to be practiced and appreciated and really just continuing to work on it. It's a fun thing to work
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I love this idea of community that you've broached as well, because I think and we're focusing a lot on women, but as women in particular, we tend to think we have to do it alone. Well, actually, I think on this one for across the genders, this feeling, this societal expectation that successful people do it alone, right? And the opposite is true. So I think that's so important to get back grounded in that sense of community, which ties back to your gorgeous, that co-acceleration. A rising tide lifts all boats. We all do better when we support each other for those best possible outcomes. And Kathleen, we've been kind of skirting around and talking about sort of, women in particular on this and that. So let's speak right to coax that elephant out into the light here. What do you see, if any, as sort of gender differences in negotiation?
Well, I think that, we've got the stereotypical that you certainly talk about in all of your work, of women kind of being the more congenial, the more, the gender or, the type that would probably give in more and be, just less bold,
Yeah.
less powerful, less assertive. And absolutely, that's certainly not true. And so I think, blending in less about our gender and more about our powerful attributes, because, in the work that you're doing, you're also demonstrating with men, they can also assert their feminine part of them to be more caring, typical feminine kind of attributes, to be more caring, to listen more, to be more compassionate, and, dare I say, even maybe be a little softer, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And women the same. And so, using our strengths and using our humanity, Cindy, as opposed to, being stuck in these kind of old stereotypes, is bringing the best characteristics, bringing that win-win-win kind of mindset, bringing it to the table so that, we bring the best of who we are. And I think also at the end of the negotiation, a big question I want to think about, I want to use pre-rehearsal and pre-decisions before I even get to the table to think about about who do I want to be in this whole experience?
Yeah.
Do I want to be difficult, annoying, loud, obnoxious, or do I want to be powerful, use the power of my voice, speak my truth? If I have a client, I'm negotiating on behalf of a client like you so often do. How do I want to show up my professionalism, my commitment to excellence? And I don't think we have to put other people down for us to be up and to win. So where's the common co-acceleration here?
Such a great answer. And I totally agree. And I actually think we're moving away from gender distinctions. And I took a lot of heat about calling the book The Art of Feminine Negotiation, but I make a point at the beginning of the book. It's not actually gender based at all, as you beautiful. And I love you calling it attributes, right? Like we all have so-called masculine and feminine energy. And I think even those distinctions are going to be disappearing. Let's focus on the attributes and get away from a competitive mindset to a more collaborative, empowering mindset. I thought that was a beautiful answer. And you mentioned a word that really caught my attention when you said about those pre-decisions. I'd love if you could talk for a little bit about what role preparation, because that speaks to me to preparation in showing up for a negotiation or a difficult decision. What role does preparation play in effective negotiation? And what do you think are the most important elements of that preparation?
I think it even starts with this decision in advance. Again, as we've talked about, is what's the outcome that I'm looking for? And how do I want to get to that particular outcome? And also, who do I want to become? How do I want to treat the other person? How do I want to show up? And, at the end of the negotiation, do I want to look back and say, yes, this was a good decision on how I, behaved and how I treated the other person? Or do I want to just say, well, I did what I had to do. And or it was really rough and I really regret that and blah blah. It's like, no, using our powerful minds like athletes do to future pace yourself, to take some time in advance and visualize, imagine, picture, pretend, think about how this whole process will go through. How do you want to greet the person? How do you want to set the table? How do you want to discuss, have conversations? What's the mood you want to create? What's the outcome that's a win-win-win? A co-acceleration. So using your mind to have a pre-decision of who do you want to be, what do you want to do, and then future pace yourself, like almost imagine it like an athletic event and taking yourself through it, And I think the coincidences of what will be happening will be so remarkable. People will do things as you visualize it. It's like you're visualizing it and it's going to end up how you visualize it.
Oh, such a great, and I love the sports analogy. And I see this combination as you're talking. It's about being intentional, right? Bringing intentionality to the conversation and that beautiful overlay of the visualizations as well, right? Like visualize how you want it to go to birth it into existence, if you will. I think that's so great. And what do you see as the key reasons then, Kathleen, that negotiations fail in your experience?
Well, I think often fear is part of it. And I did a session a couple weeks ago about fear, and you were so lovely to attend this Saturday morning Women's Success Circle that I think fear, are we feeling excited and ready? Or are we finding excuses and reasons that it will not go well? Or determining that future events are already risky? So how does fear in all of its ramifications show up even in advance, Because if we're already anticipating and made a pre-decision that it's going to be risky, it's not going to go well, it's going to be tough, the other person's going to be tough to deal with, well, no coincidence that that's going to be our experience.
So good. Oh my gosh, you are like just good little gems everywhere here. This is so great. And when we talk, and you've already mentioned a number of them, but what would you say if you were going to list sort of the key skills or those key attributes or hallmarks, if you will? I liked your attributes, actually. What are the key attributes that make a great negotiator? What should our listeners and our viewers out there be aspiring to polish up, right?
Oh gosh, very good. Well, and and I look to you because you really model great negotiation. I mean, my goodness, you've written books on it. You've got the podcast. You're also a Wall Street Journal bestseller and Amazon bestseller with your book. So we'll put some plugs in there. But I think it's know thyself and obviously get skilled up, have a mentor that you work with to be prepared. Run through different scenarios. You brought up earlier, we were talking about community practice and work with someone, hire a coach, hire a consultant who's already been down this road who can guide you. Sometimes these experts who have written books, great, super good, but I think engaging with a mentor you resonate with to do this is really important. So growth, education, practice, have a game plan, of course, and know the person on the other side. I wouldn't even call them an opponent,
Yes.
know what the other team is. What is their position? What is their point of view? What are they going for? What do you anticipate would be a win there?
Yeah.
And, come with a open spirit, open heart, a giving and receiving mindset, and look for where there can be co-acceleration and there can be collaboration, and meet where you can meet on this.
Yeah.
And know that life is short. Chances are good you're going to come back and see these same people in
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
environment, whether it's the grocery line or it's a cocktail party or something. That life is short. And I think treating people with respect and honor, grace, lots of love, care, being tough, of course, got to be tough, get the business done.
Yeah.
I think it really serves all of us very well.
So good. And great that you sort of centered in on that, because so often people think, oh, this is just a one-off, right? So then they show up in a way that is not their best self. And as you say, life is short and it is a small world ultimately. And I can't think of how many times somebody that I thought I would never have to deal with again suddenly shows up either in that same capacity, or they've moved on and now that same person shows up in some other capacity. But even in terms of your reputation, maybe you won't deal with that person, but they'll have spoken about you and their experience of you. And that ends up translating to somebody you're dealing with down the road. And you may not even know what's playing in the background, but this person is already showing up with resistance because they heard all about you already before you even showed up in that room. And I really wanted to put a pin for our listeners in that: know thyself, and to thine own self be true. Because you spoke so eloquently about there's all these books out there, and definitely read them and skill up. But I think so many people get caught going, oh, okay, rapport building. I need to mirror and match. Oh, she's crossed her arms, I'm going to cross her arms. And they're so in their head thinking about what to do that they're not actually showing up as their authentic self and just being in the moment to build relationship. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Kathleen.
Oh, Cindy, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And I'm amazed. Just this past week, I got a phone call from a client that I had literally 6 years ago.
Wow.
Seems like 6 months, but it was 6 years. And they've moved on to another company and they want to engage me for some work. And it was like, wow, this is fantastic. They thought of me because of my relationship with them and the team and some reputation, as you said. And so our reputation does follow us. And I think at the end of the negotiation, the end of the interaction, how do we want to be received? How do we want to have people experience us? And at the end of it, they're walking away saying, Cindy Watson, she was tough. She was really tough. We didn't get everything that we wanted, but we really felt heard. We were respected. It was a good negotiation. Beginning with the end in mind, as our beautiful Stephen Covey talked about, is thinking about how do we want the end to go and then work towards that.
And take the long view, right? From what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Don't take that short-sighted win in the moment if the expense of that is going to be a long-term sort of problem. And tied to that, I think I'd love your views on what role emotion plays in negotiation, because I think often we can show up as not ideal versions of ourselves when we get a little carried away in reactive mode. So I'd love your thoughts on emotion and negotiations.
Oh my goodness, what a rich topic, Cindy. That's emotions. And I think that when we look at the word emotions, it's emote, and we can experience what we're experiencing on the inside. And that's why I think it's so important for this pre-rehearsal, pre-decisions, to work on calming our nervous system down. That's literally, I think, half of the whole equation is knowing that we can be calm and relaxed. We've practiced being calm and relaxed in so many times, and that our emotions can come up, but we don't have to fall into them. We don't have to be subject to them. We don't have to lose ourselves because we're feeling nervous or concerned or things are coming up. That's the real power, I think, in a negotiation and in life too, is to be in control, to know that no matter what, I've got this. And it takes practice to do that. It really does. Yeah.
Well, and I'm glad this theme of practice keeps coming up, because I think so often we assume we just need to show up and somehow magically, it's like any skill in life, you will get better if you practice. So, go to flea markets, frankly, go to garage sales, Practice in safe environments, practice in front of the mirror if you're about to have
Yeah.
so the first time you're making those big asks should never be in the actual meeting where it matters. Like practice saying that big number that pushes you outside your comfort zone so that by the time you say it when it actually matters, it'll be so comfortable, it won't cause any resistance. And I love when you were talking about that. I think there's a big difference between being emotional versus bringing emotion, right? Like bring your
Yes.
EQ, bring the deep
Yeah.
emotional resonance of your why, but don't be emotional. And I think that ties back to Kathleen to what you've had this theme coming through about who do you want to, as part of that pre-decision, who do you want to show up as? Because when you've decided that with intention and you find something triggers you in a negotiation that causes you to be feeling some emotional reaction, when you've predetermined who you want to show up as, you can take that pause to ground yourself back in who that is, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I wanted to show up as calm, compelling, and whatever. Okay, let me take a moment to get back there, right? I think that's such a beautiful answer.
Yeah. And what you bring up is so important because, to have some place to come home to and to come home to our body, we're grounded, we're calm and relaxed. There's nothing out there, that's going to get us off of our game unless we allow it to.
Yeah.
And so, the more we rehearse it, the more we practice it. Honestly, I practice every day. I practice every day, just literally taking a few minutes to close my eyes, not while driving or operating high to just take a moment and take a deep breath and feel like, what am I feeling in my body?
Yeah.
And if I feel something that happens as goes a little off, I then have trained myself, and everyone who's listening can do that too, is to back it up and say, what was the thing that happened? What external thing happened? Or what happened? What thought did I have? What belief do I have that caused me to have this feeling? And invariably, we can all just track it to, hey, maybe I got cut off in traffic, or I found a phone call or got an email or something. So tracking it back to that episode that stimulated us, that kind of was the little jab, and then doing a little healing work around that.
Yeah. I am just feeling warm up when you said somewhere to come home to. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. I wish I'd heard that before I wrote my book. I would put that in with that. I think that's just so beautifully sums it up, right? When you, in terms of the entire preparation process, that grounding yourself to a home, right? A home base. I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful concept. And so many nuggets here. Like truly, that is one of those amongst many of the things that you said that are little mic drop nuggets here today that I think is fantastic. And I can't believe how fast our time is going together. Now, I normally like to end up by asking, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've had in your life, right? Where it doesn't have to be even on this issue, just a shift that caused you to show up differently.
Wow, that I have a voice and my calling is to use it.
Oh, nice. I love
And to
that.
call other women to use their voice and to know they have a voice and to use their voice and take action.
That's so good. So beautiful. I love that. And again, gave me a little, because that was one of the gifts I think that my dad gave without me even knowing it. And that is just, I always grew up believing my voice mattered because we'd have really spirited discussions around the table. And as I got older, I recognized so many people, and women in particular, never had the benefit of that gift. And it can be a long time recognizing that your voice matters. So what a beautiful insight. Well, Kathleen, thank you so, so much for being here today. I truly want to get you back because I know we've just scratched the surface and you've already given us so much incredible value here today. So thank you for joining us and sharing.
Been such a pleasure, Cindy. Loved every second of it. Thank you.
Oh, and for our listeners out there, I want you to learn more about Kathleen as well. We had sort of hinted at before about the great work she does with the C-suite. So why don't you tell us where you would like people to look you up, Kathleen? And we'll make sure to put them in the show notes as well for our listeners to be able to track you down.
Thank you, Cindy Watson. Yes. Well, I'm all over LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. So people can find me and send me a DM on LinkedIn through Kathleen Caldwell and or C-Suite Networks, Women's Coaching and Consulting Council.
Beautiful.
So all in on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And definitely for any of the women out there, check that out. That C-Suite Council. Kathleen's done some amazing work, as I say, from a networking perspective, helping to elevate, getting visibility. I know there's going to be a book coming out this year, sort of a collaboration of some of the C-suite members there. So definitely be checking out those resources. And I have no doubt that you've just got loads and loads of value from this episode. I know I did. I'm just feeling warm all over, little nuggets. I can't wait to get the transcript of this and highlight it all up. There was just such great gold there. And please do make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that, and give the gift of sharing. I really do invite you, share this episode with people in your life who you think could benefit from this message. And before we sign off today, I just wanted to share a few ways that we can work together if you're looking to up-level your negotiation skills. I've got everything from online to signature one-on-one or VIP experiences available to help you leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve. If that sounds interesting, check it out at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And Kathleen has mentioned the book. Feel free to grab your copy of my Art of Feminine Negotiation book, but do check out, as I say, Kathleen's programming as well. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so that you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.